You know that question every kid asks, right? Like when you're little and you look up at the sky and you're like, why is it blue? Well, today we're going to kind of revisit that simple question.
Mm-hmm.
But what we find is that it's not so simple.
Right.
The answer to that question actually unlocks all this understanding about light and color
Yeah.
and even like how we perceive reality.
It's really fascinating how something so basic can lead to such profound insights.
It is. And to help us out today, we've got some really cool source material.
Okay.
It's an allegorical story. And it uses this group of adventurers and their wise guide, Master Shin, to explain some pretty complex concepts in a really engaging way.
And what's so clever about it is that it starts with something we all know. The sky is blue.
Right.
But then it uses that as a jumping off point to really delve into the nature of light and color.
Yeah, I was surprised when I was reading this source material just how much depth there was to this question.
You know, it's amazing how often that happens. The most basic questions lead to the most complex and interesting answers.
Totally. So in this story, the adventurers are on their journey and they come across a talking tree.
Of course they do.
Right. Because why not?
Why not?
And the tree poses this question to them.
Which is
Why is the sky blue?
classic.
The very question we're exploring today.
There you go.
And it's there that they meet Master Shin, who kind of becomes their guide on this journey of discovery.
I like that Master Shin doesn't just give them the answer, though. He really encourages them to figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, he pushes them to observe and think critically about what they see.
Exactly.
So one of the first things he does is he points out that sunlight appears white, yet the sky is blue.
Right. So why is that?
Exactly. And that's where this concept of Rayleigh scattering comes in.
Okay, so Rayleigh scattering, that's the scientific explanation for why we see a blue sky.
So can you refresh my memory on that one? I learned about it in school, but it's a little fuzzy.
Yeah, sure. So basically sunlight is made up of all the colors of the rainbow combined. And when this light enters the Earth's atmosphere, it bumps into all these tiny molecules of air, like nitrogen and oxygen.
Okay.
Now, blue light has a shorter wavelength than the other colors. And because of that, it gets scattered more by these molecules. It's kind of like if you throw a handful of pebbles into a pond, the smaller pebbles are going to scatter more widely.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So it's not that the sky is actually blue, but the blue light is just being scattered all over the place.
Exactly. And that's what makes the sky look blue to us.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But the story doesn't stop there.
No,
right?
no.
Yeah.
It takes this idea of light and color even further and actually challenges the very idea of color as we perceive it.
Yeah, there's this whole concept of a rainbow city.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, I mean, you're the expert here.
Okay, so the Rainbow City, it's this fictional place in the story where the adventurers, they encounter objects and landscapes that are constantly shifting in color. Yeah, and it's meant to illustrate the point that color might not be an inherent property of objects, but rather a perception created by our brains based on the light that's reflected.
So you're saying that like a red apple isn't actually red.
Well, that's the question the story wants you to consider. Think about it. Our eyes, they detect wavelengths of light that are reflected off an object, and then our brains interpret those wavelengths as a specific color.
So if there were no light or no one to see it, would that apple even have a color?
Right. It's a mind-bending thought, isn't it?
That is pretty trippy.
It really challenges our assumptions about how we perceive the world.
Yeah, and it raises some questions about the limitations of our senses. But you know what? We're going to have to leave that for part 2.
We're just getting started.
I know.
It gets even more fascinating from here.
All right, so stay tuned, everybody.
Stay tuned.
All right, so we're back, and we've been talking about why the sky is blue, which has led us to some pretty crazy places already. Like the idea that color might not even be a real property of objects.
Yeah, it's all about perception.
Exactly. But as we go deeper into the source material, it becomes even clearer that like our senses, they're really limited. They're only giving us a small glimpse of what's actually out there.
Yeah, that idea of a limited window is really fascinating to me. Like, if what we perceive as color is just our brain interpreting certain wavelengths of light, what other things are we missing?
I know. It's so crazy to think about.
It is both humbling and exhilarating, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
So like, let's say with sound, for instance, we humans, we can only hear a certain range of frequencies. But there are animals out there that can hear sounds way beyond our capacity.
Oh, absolutely. Like dogs can hear those high-pitched whistles that we can't even detect. And bats, they navigate using echolocation, sending out sound waves and interpreting the echoes to see their surroundings.
Wow. It's like they're experiencing a whole other dimension of sound.
Right, that we're completely oblivious to.
They were basically walking around with blinders on. only able to perceive this tiny sliver of reality.
Kind of makes you wonder, though, how can we even begin to understand those things that we can't directly experience?
Right. That's a good question.
Well, that's where human ingenuity comes in, and the power of science.
Okay.
We've developed tools and technologies that extend our senses. They allow us to detect and measure things that were once invisible to us.
So like telescopes and microscopes.
Exactly. Telescopes reveal these distant galaxies that are billions of light years away. And microscopes unlock the intricate secrets hidden within a single cell.
They're like extensions of our own senses.
Right.
Showing us a universe that's way bigger and more complex than we could ever imagine.
Exactly.
So technology is helping us see beyond those blinders.
Precisely. And it's not just about seeing with our eyes. We've created instruments to measure all sorts of things we can't perceive with our human senses. We can detect electromagnetic radiation beyond the visible spectrum, like radio waves, microwaves, X-rays, gamma rays, all forms of light that our eyes can't see but are crucial to our understanding of the universe.
It's amazing how much we've learned about the universe because of technology.
It is pretty incredible.
But then it also makes you wonder, what else is out there that we haven't even begun to detect?
Right. Are there limits to what science can reveal?
That is the question, isn't it?
It's a question that's been debated for ages by both scientists and philosophers. But, the history of science? It's a testament to our ability to push those boundaries of understanding. What seems impossible today might be commonplace tomorrow with new discoveries and new technologies.
So you're saying that one day we might even be able to perceive things like consciousness, or even tap into alternate dimensions.
Who knows? The possibilities are truly endless. But it all comes back to that central question posed by Master Shin in the story. Is the world we perceive the real world, or is it just a tiny fragment of a much larger, more complex reality?
Right. And that's what we've been grappling with this whole time.
Yeah, the story doesn't give you a straight answer, though.
Well, it wouldn't be a very good story if it did.
Right. This question has fascinated thinkers for centuries. It's what keeps driving scientific exploration and philosophical debate.
So where does that leave us? If our senses are so limited, can we ever really know what's real?
Well, the story doesn't leave you in a state of despair or uncertainty. It actually provides a framework for approaching this question.
Okay, I like that.
It's one of curiosity, critical thinking, and open-mindedness.
I can get behind that. It's not about having all the answers, but about embracing the mystery and continuing to explore with a sense of wonder.
Exactly. The story reminds us that our understanding of reality, it's constantly evolving. What we consider real today might be completely different tomorrow as we learn more and develop new ways of understanding the universe around us.
That's a good point. And it makes me think about what else we might discover in the next part of our deep dive.
Well, stay tuned because we're going to delve even deeper into the world of perception, and I think you'll find it quite fascinating.
And we are back for the final part of our deep dive.
Here we are.
We started with that question, why is the sky blue? But we've gone way beyond that now, haven't we?
We have. It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, from the physics of light to questioning the very nature of reality itself.
It really highlights how something so simple can lead to such profound questions.
It does. And through it all, this story has been emphasizing that it's not just about what we know, but how we approach knowledge.
Right, Master Sheen. He's all about cultivating curiosity and critical thinking.
And those are skills we don't always actively work on.
That's true. We tend to think of curiosity as something you either have or you don't.
Yeah.
But the story suggests that it's more like a muscle. You can strengthen it with practice.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So how do we exercise that curiosity muscle?
Well, one of the things the story suggests is to approach everyday experiences with a beginner's mind. Almost like you're seeing things for the first time, without all those assumptions and judgments we usually carry around.
So like instead of just walking past a tree and thinking, oh, that's a tree, you actually stop and really look at it.
Exactly. Notice the texture of the bark, the way the leaves catch the light. Ask yourself those simple questions you might have asked as a child. Like, why is the grass green? How does a bird fly?
Why is the sky blue?
Exactly. It's about rediscovering that sense of wonder.
I love that. And I think it ties in perfectly with another point from the story, engaging with different perspectives.
Absolutely. The story encourages you to seek out people with different viewpoints. Listen to what they have to say, ask questions, and be open to having your own assumptions challenged.
It's like we each have a piece of the puzzle. And by sharing those pieces and listening to each other, we get closer to seeing the whole picture.
That's a great way to put it. But it's not just about listening passively. There's also an emphasis on critical thinking.
Oh, right. Critical thinking. So what's that about?
It's about taking that next step, analyzing information carefully, identifying biases, evaluating evidence before forming conclusions. It's so important today, especially when we're constantly bombarded with information from all directions.
Yeah, information overload, it's a real thing.
It is. And we need those critical thinking skills to navigate it all, to figure out what's credible, what's not, what aligns with our own values.
So we become more discerning consumers of information.
Exactly. And more effective communicators ourselves.
It all comes back to thinking for yourself.
Right. Forming your own opinions based on reason and evidence.
This has been such a great reminder that learning isn't just about accumulating facts. It's about cultivating this whole mindset.
A mindset of curiosity, openness, and critical thinking.
Exactly. And it's a journey that doesn't end when we stop recording, right?
No, not at all. The story wants you to carry that spirit of inquiry with you into your everyday life.
To keep asking questions, stay curious, and never stop exploring.
Was said.
And on that note, I want to thank you so much for being here and guiding us through this incredible exploration.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and given you some new ways to engage with the world around you. Remember, there's always more to discover, more to learn, and more to question. So stay curious, keep exploring, and see you next time.
See you then.